Welcome to the Emotional Horsemanship Podcast. I am your host, Lockie Phillips, and I help deeply caring equestrians create emotionally balanced horses with science, empathy, and feel. This podcast is a safe place for anyone who desires a better future for horses and for the equestrian lifestyle. I hope that you will enjoy these solo and collaborative episodes where we enjoy a deep insight into our horses' worlds and ways in which we can make that better for them. If you love horses and are willing to do right by them, you're going to love this podcast. And I thank you for being here. Louise Bach Holler is my guest on the podcast today for a very good reason. Louise is a horse trainer and hoofcare provider certified with the AANHCP, who was born in Denmark but currently lives in northeast Spain. Louise is passionate about natural horse keeping, barefoot trimming, and training that blends food rewards with gentle pressure to fully educate and support a horse in their training in the best way possible. Louise has competency in gymnastic groundwork, bitless riding, communication, body language, liberty work, and much more. Sidebar, 2 years ago, I came into care of a quarter horse colt named Oki, who lives near Louise. Oki's breeder and I have been collaborating on his slow and gradual upbringing at his original home for the last 2 years. But this week, the first week of July 2024, Oki transports from one side of Spain to the other to begin the next chapter of his life as he joins the emotional horsemanship herd here at my farm. Transporting a 2-year-old horse who has always lived at home across the country is a huge thing to ask of him, so I knew I needed help. Not just any help, but really qualified help that was as close to how I like horses to be trained as I train them. So I found Louise and I hired her 6 months ago to be my hands, my eyes, my help to train Oki to be best prepared to travel as possible, and I'm thrilled with the job that she has done. So I thought you guys might like to meet her yourself. I hope you enjoy this episode with Louise Bach Holler. So I have Louise Bach Holler here. Am I saying that correctly? Bach Holler?
Bach Holler.
Bach Holler.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. You represent Rebel Horse Care on Instagram and Facebook. Why Rebel?
I thought you were probably going to ask me that.
Yeah.
Well, I chose that name because I feel like a rebel and have felt like a rebel many times in my life, especially around the horses and the horse industry, because I tend to go against the stream, maybe, with things that I do. So I guess I feel like a quiet rebel.
Rebel. I like that. That's one of the reasons why I like you. But I think we'll get into it a little bit more later, but isn't it nuts that the way you train and care for horses is seen as a rebellion? Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Not to gaslight the entire industry, but like real talk. Mm-hmm. I've seen the way you keep horses. I've seen the way you train horses, at least online. And I'm hiring you to help me at this time. We're working together, but it's nuts that the way you and I do it is seen as a rebellion, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I like to start these episodes with, I ask a really, really big question to start with. Mm-hmm. The point of the question is not that you answer it accurately. The point is just to hear you talk. So, Louise, who are you? What do you do? And how do you do it?
Yes, that is a big question.
Yes.
So I am Louise. I am from Denmark, born and raised in Denmark, and moved to Catalonia, Spain in 2018, with my husband and 5 horses and 2 cats. So we moved to a farm in the mountains, very, very secluded place. And we are restoring an old Masia here, the old farm horses in Catalonia called Masias. And so we're doing that. And at the same time, I'm trying to build my business here around the horses. So I work with hoofcare. I'm a hoof trimmer. So that's part of what I do. I teach workshops also about hoofcare and horse care, which is a big, big part of that, the whole management of the horses, the diet, the herd life, all of these things. And then I teach training as well, horse training.
Thank you. So that's what you do and where you've been. May I prod you to illuminate for us who you are? Who do you think you are as a person?
I am, I think, a person who reflects a lot on things. And I am a person who chooses my own way. And if something doesn't feel right for me, I keep investigating and I keep reflecting. And I do things my own way. And it doesn't really matter how many experts are telling me something. I will keep doing it my own way if it doesn't feel right to me, what people are saying. So I think that's kind of leading the way I do things with the horses and in my life generally. So, yeah.
You live from the gut.
Yes, from the gut and from the heart, very much.
I was about to say from the heart, because you don't strike me as someone who lives only from that chakra, from the gut. You strike me as someone who's very much heart-centered. Would that be accurate?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So is it the gut or is it the heart that's leading you?
I would say the heart mostly.
Yeah, there we go.
I think I'm a very emotional person, and
we all are.
Yes, yes. I think I bear it maybe on the outside more than many people do, and I think that I can't overhear my heart. I think that's maybe it. I can't overhear it. I have to listen. I have to follow what it's telling me.
So when you get this information, because I know what you're talking about, you get this information, comes into your body, and you almost don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
It doesn't feel like you created the information. It doesn't feel like someone shared it with you. It does not feel like someone told you what to do. Maybe there are some references or some trigger points, something you read, something you saw. But there is a whole formed knowledge, like a complete universe that kind of sinks into your awareness and you go, oh, I need to do like this right now.
Yes.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you?
I know exactly what to say. Yeah, exactly.
How often does this occur for you? And before you keep going, this is going to be on the recording. I have a little cat in my office who's asking to be let out. Aren't we all just servants to our cats? So let me just let my cat out of the office. I'll be
absolutely.
30 seconds. I'll be right back. He's our youngest, and sometimes he comes in here because there's some good beds and there's some good stuff to do in here. But as soon as I start working and talking, he's like, can you let me out? Like, let me out. Like, he wants out.
And you know what? I was thinking, because I have 2 cats, I was thinking, I hope they're not going to ask to be let out during the time.
Listen, they're going to bounce all around. Our oldest cat, who's really like my close friend, he's always with me in the office when I'm working, and he's here and he's sleeping. So anyway, before we were directed by logistics, what we were talking about something very deep and meaningful, weren't we?
Yes. What was it?
Yeah, it was like this like non-local intelligence that kind of sinks into our body. And there seems to be a preponderance of horse people that this happens to, meaning I think, for me at least, I speak about myself, this happens to me around horses more than anywhere else.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So how often does that perhaps happen for you?
I would say every time I'm with them, really. I don't think I always listen to it, though. I think I'm still learning to actually listen to it. But it does happen all the time. Yeah. Absolutely.
So if it happens all the time and you don't always listen to it, try and describe that sensation for us when you've got this awareness in your body and you're not listening to it. Maybe you're not listening to it. You're just aware that it's there, but not engaging with it yet or not using it yet. What's that experience like? Do you have any insight why?
I think confusion from all the information that we're all exposed to, really, right? Where there's so much information and there's so much going on all the time around us. And I'm a person who seeks information, as I think you are too, always reading articles, always, searching new information about horses and about the work I do, and looking at social media and, all these things that constantly is in our face. And I think that sometimes it becomes too much. I think that we need to take breaks, maybe also to just listen to our hearts and to our horses. Because when there's so many voices all the time with so many different opinions and so many different sides on things, it can be hard to know where you are and who you are and all of that. You can get lost in it. And I think even though I'm a person who try to follow my heart and listen to that, I get lost in that too sometimes.
Interesting. See,
but I think that I'm aware of it and can stop and say, hey, what's going on now? Is this my thought or is this something I heard someone else say? Where does this come from? And step back and take a moment, take a deep breath, and come back to myself. Yeah.
So interesting you say that, because I'm going to need your help to try and understand that piece, because this is the part where I become unrelatable to everybody. You ready? This is the part, right? Because I think what you just said is probably the experience of most people. At least that's the feedback I get from social media and from my clients. This feeling of, oh my God, there's so much information. What do I do with it? This kind of overwhelmed situation. That seems to be like the status quo in our work, because we share the same type of client in our industry right now. And this is the part where I become unrelatable. I don't have that feeling of overwhelm. I can't remember feeling overwhelmed by all of the information out there.
Okay.
I only remember going, wow, new information, cool. Wow, new information, cool. Wow, more information, cool. Wow, more information, cool. I just keep plugging it in.
Right.
I just keep plugging it in. It's like, when you go to the Brico Depot, to the hardware store, and you buy a power adapter, it's one plug, but then it gives you 20 plugs to plug in 20 different things. It's sort of like I've got one plug, but I've got 17,000 adapters, and I can plug all the things in, and it doesn't overload my circuitry, in the sense that if it did overload my circuitry, I would stop before the overload happened, and I would go watch The Housewives of Beverly Hills to turn my brain off. Right. Or I'd go watch, another shitty reality TV show to turn my brain off. I would just do that. I wouldn't ever stay in the overwhelm. And I think sometimes I struggle and go wrong with my clients and my community when I don't understand that overwhelm piece. I don't understand that overwhelm piece, because I'm like, why aren't we taking intellectually better care of ourselves? Why is our relationship with an abundance of information geared around overload and overwhelm rather than receive? The thing is, when we receive a huge amount of information, our job is not to understand all of it. That's not the job. I don't try to understand everything I'm seeing or reading. I just go, good information. And it's almost like I just let it into my body and it will make sense eventually. And if it never makes sense to me, then it was irrelevant information. My body filters it out. I had a coach when I was 17, Paulette Mifsud. I talk about her all the time. She passed away a few years ago. She was a performance psychologist in Australia, and we were working on a business together. She taught me, I think, how to concentrate and how to do all of this. And she would say, when you're getting information or feedback from a teacher, imagine your brain is like a pasta strainer. You pour all the hot water and the pasta into the strainer, all the water disappears. If you need to retain water, take some water and be intentional about that. But everything filters down into your subconscious and you retain, what's most important right now. But everything else filters down into your subconscious and will make sense one day. I mean, I've had situations with horses where some piece of information I downloaded 6 years ago suddenly made sense to me today in this ride. And I think you just nodded your head, so you know what that feels like too.
Absolutely.
But I'm trying to understand the overwhelm piece. Are you able to bring any light for me there?
I think that you are a person who knows where you belong. I think you follow your heart as well, and I think you know where you belong. So you can take new information as you can add it to what you already know.
Sort of. Pause right there. I know where I belong because I don't belong anywhere.
Right.
I've never belonged. I've never belonged anywhere. I've always been the outsider. I've always been on the fringe. So it's like I don't have to belong. So any information that I get, I don't have to filter it through, well, how does this belong to the tribe? It's like, well, I don't belong to any damn tribe. So it can just be mine and I don't have to filter it through anything or anyone.
Right. Yeah. And I recognize that as well.
Yeah.
Very much. But I think for a lot of people out there, if they don't have that sense of being at home in their own body or in their own space, maybe it's difficult, because then you get confused. Is this true? Is this true? Who should I listen to? I think that's what's happening for a lot of people. If they seek information and then they get confused about, instead of just adding it to something that like they have a foundation that works for them, and then they can add something or filter it and say, I can take this part I don't like, I put that aside, but I take this part. If you don't have a strong foundation, you don't know where you're coming from, and who you are with the horses, I think that it can become very confusing.
So are you saying that
who should I listen to? Should I listen to this person or that person? They're contradicting each other. And I don't know which is right. If you don't have that sense, well, this makes sense to me. This does not make sense to me. So this is what I'm going to stick with.
So you're saying that when someone's overloaded with present information, the problem is not the present information. The problem is what lies beneath. And what lies beneath is a shaky foundation in the first place.
Yes.
That's so important. That helps me because that's kind of what I try to teach. Because, and I think you do too, because we make information overload the boogeyman. We make the adaptations we see in modern horse training the boogeyman. We say, oh, it's a problem that everyone's got an online course and everyone's got a social media page. We make that the boogeyman, but the problem is not that. The problem is what lies beneath. And like you remember, what was it like 10, 15, even 5 years ago? How hard was it to find good information, period, around horses?
Yep. Yeah. Impossible, almost. Yeah.
We had like two options. We had Pat Pirelli, Monty Roberts,
exactly,
and then
goodness,
whoever was down the road.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we had.
Not very good choices, are they?
Well, I'm quite humble before them because I believe that they walked so that we can run.
They did, and I agree.
So how do you work with horses as a trainer? How would you describe that?
Oh, that's a hard one. isn't it?
We ask the hard questions here. I don't fry small fish. We fry the big fish here. Every now and then we'll fry a small fish. Yeah.
All right. So I would say on the technical side, I work with both negative and positive reinforcement.
Say that again.
And on the technical side, I work with both negative and positive reinforcement.
Hallelujah. To hear a horse trainer straight off the bat say, this is what I lead with from an operant standpoint. And now, operant standpoints is just the skeleton of the training. It's not the whole fleshed out body of it.
Right.
There's a lot of shame around people who blend those two modalities.
Yes.
Unnecessarily. Yes,
absolutely.
But there's a lot of shame conditioning coming from certain communities around people who blend those modalities, right?
Yes, I agree. And absolutely, negative reinforcement can be horrible, but it can also be very nice and very gentle, precise. So I think that
R plus can also be very horrible.
You go about things.
R plus can also be very horrible.
Yes, it can. It can absolutely.
Any horse training has the potential for massive failure.
Yeah, it does. It does. Right. So that is the technical side of things. But most importantly, I think what I work with is body language, clear boundaries, which I think also is something that is something that a lot of people are a little bit afraid of. I sense cannot set boundaries for the horses because it's gonna break them. And I don't think so. I think that we need to set boundaries to any other living being, be it human or animal. I work also with, my heart, as I was talking about, the sensation of what feels right and what does not feel right. Staying calm and sensing what's going on with this horse right now. Why is it acting the way it's acting? Why is it reacting? Whatever's going on. So it's hard to describe, and this is the part that's so difficult also to teach others, I think, is this whole sensation and feeling, and because it's not technical. Teaching the technical part is easy. It's fairly easy. But this whole inner part of it it's hard, because it's based on emotions and feelings and sensations. And
well, that's unfortunately, maybe stupid old me has decided to take a very technical approach to teaching all of that. At least I'm giving it a red hot go to teach the technicalities of your internal felt
and how do
experience.
you find it works for people?
Very well.
Students. Yeah.
Very well. I mean, it's a huge social re-engineering project, emotional horsemanship.
Yeah.
I'm finding it easier to do now in groups and community work. But for several years I was doing only privates. For about a decade I've been doing this privately, but then since the pandemic, I started doing this online, and it escalated to doing about 1,000 online sessions per year.
Wow.
And now that's escalated rapidly. And I just finished a semester where I was doing 55 to 65 people every week with a combination of group and private services. So every single service I've done, I might be young and I might be a little bit wet behind the ears to some people, but I've worked very, very hard, and I've had this like almost monk-like, monastic-like experience with my work. Like, I don't have kids, I don't have distractions, I just work on this with my horses and my community. And so in a short period of time, I've gained a lot of experience, and every single session is an opportunity for me to refine this, learn about them and how to make this better. So we're getting there. I mean, we're finding our language to describe the technicalities of this internal experience. We're building on a lot of science, but we're also bringing in aspects for which there is no research yet. And it's building. It's really fascinating to watch.
And I think it's necessary. And I think that people are, I think that it's so popular what you're doing because it's very necessary and people like it. People like this because if they are only taught the technical side of horse training, they will end up missing something. It only works to a certain extent, If we
Yes.
only use, we can learn some technical things and how to get a horse to do something, but we will miss out on something. We'll only get to a certain point and it will not feel fulfilling.
I agree. That's an interesting point you just made. I mean, people will like it. Not everyone will like it, Louise.
No,
Let's be really, really frank. And even then, not maybe people will like it, but they won't like me. Right. And that's okay. I'm really at peace with that because again, I don't belong anywhere. So I'm in the process of training up some instructors and trainers. They just begun work. My first 2 begun work this week. So I'm teaching a methodology which eventually will have nothing to do with me. And thank God it's not about my personality or something, because then we're dead in the water. But I see technicality and talent or inspiration as yin and yang.
Yeah.
I think technique is what you use when you run out of inspiration.
Yeah.
And inspiration is what you use when you run out of technique. And they complement each other. Now, I have a bunch of clients. I have clients who come to me with a lot of technique, and they need help on the inspiration part.
Exactly, yeah.
And then on the other end, you'll have people who come and they'll be very, very inspired, but they need some chops. They need some basic mechanics, Do you find the same?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have a very specific approach? Are you able to identify where these people are and how you can enter in with them?
Do I have a specific approach? I don't know, actually. I don't know. I think
Who's supposed to know then? Who's supposed to know? We're paying you, the teacher. Come on, Louise. You do have a specific approach. You might just feel awkward getting put on the spot without preparation.
Yeah, maybe.
Feel free to ramble. Feel free to ramble on it. Just whatever comes to your mind on that. Because I think if you're a trainer, you've got an approach. Maybe we struggle to zoom out and have the awareness of it. So, like, if someone comes to you and you identify, for example, hugely inspired, really good feel of their horse, needs some technique. What's your first step with them? What do you teach?
Well, I always start with people on the ground, first of all, not on riding the horse, always on the ground.
That's a specific approach, Louise.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Thank you for finding it.
You're welcome.
So that's one thing I do. And I also have some certain exercises that I always start with, and it doesn't really matter who it is. And I guess that is to kind of feel into where is this person, how is the connection with the horse, and then watching them do these exercises, I can then figure out what I feel that they need, what I can help them with.
Can I ask what sort of exercises you start with?
Leading work. Walking with your horse.
So important.
It's so important, and it's really not something that everyone can do with a horse. And a lot of people can do amazing things with a horse, but they can't
lead them.
Yeah. So I think that's
love that.
Yeah, that's so important. And how do you lead the horse? Is the horse walking with you? How's it working? Can you stop, change sides? All of these things. I think that's like the baseline of.
I'm starting to understand that most horses, even very well-trained horses, have zero halter training or close to zero halter training. The horses have kind of survived somehow and figured it out somehow.
Which is amazing.
Isn't it crazy? And like, here's what most halter training looks like. A horse at some age, let's say between 3 months to 2 years old, who knows, depending where they are and the level of intervention being done on them, that baby or horse one day has someone grab them, put a thing on their head, and start pulling them around by it. Ta-da, you're halter trained.
Yes. Exactly.
For most horses, that's their experience. And now you have a 20-year-old horse that you ask them to come forward off the halter, and they have a major problem with that.
Yes, I completely agree. And they are, and not just that, I mean, also standing still, lifting legs, all of these things that any horse really should learn very early in their education. Many horses, they don't
They don't do it.
They've never been taught. No.
Yep. I've got all my students this last semester. We brought it all right back down to basics. And I was like, we need to make sure we've got all of this before we go any further. Everyone was very excited. They wanted to gallop with me. They wanted to, oh, Lockie, get us to the riding, get us to the fun stuff, get us to the artistic stuff. I was like, yes, I'd love to. I would really love to. Believe me, I would love to, because doing 55 sessions a week on leading is perhaps an interesting way to spend a winter, let's say.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to be working. Let's just say that. But we've got to get this done, and going with every horse and realizing so few of them have that halter training. And like preparing my horses to move from the south of Spain to Galicia this year, we spent 6 months just working on their halter training, because that's what trailer loading is. It's an example of really good halter training.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, that's a convenient segue. Louise, I've hired you to work with me for me, right? So I have a beautiful fat baby living in your side of Spain, which is in the northern east coast. 2 years ago, I forged an arrangement with a friend and student. She was a student as well, Cara, who has a very small, lovely little ranch there in Girona, and she has some quarter horses, and she bred a lovely little colt. And I said, oh, he looks lovely. I'd love to have a horse like that one day. And she said, oh my God, I'd love to send a horse to you. And I was like, shall we talk? We got on the phone, we made an arrangement, and the arrangement has been that I'm given an opportunity to walk my talk. So I'm not just complaining about these industry problems, but I'm actually doing something about it and trying to be an example for how it could be done differently. And I have this arrangement with Cara where I will take this horse for the rest of his life. I will not sell him. He is not for sale. That's my choice. But the condition is that he stays at home with his mother for at least 2 years. She said, let's do 2.5 years, because I need to make sure he gets to 6 months old and doesn't die. I was like, okay, fair.
Right.
And then that we would collaborate on all aspects of his upbringing, from his diet to his lifestyle to his weaning process to his early handling and his training, everything. And at the beginning, Cara had a lovely colt starter who does sort of classical horsemanship come out and do absolutely exquisite rope handling with him. He was 3 months old, completely at liberty by his mum's side, and she was moving like a Tai Chi master. I've got the videos. She was moving like a Tai Chi master and showing him ropes behind his pole and on his nose and around his legs and around his body. Just very, very ancient, timeless, classical foal handling with him. And if he wanted to leave at any time, he could. And she never did it for longer than 10 minutes and never more than 1 day a week, I think we did this.
Okay.
And you've been his trimming. His name is Oki. We're calling him Oki. But you've been his trimmer since...
Yeah.
How old?
4 weeks old, I think he was.
4 weeks old. You gave him his first trim.
Yeah. I have. And he's... Oh my God, he's so sweet.
Isn't he lovely?
He's so sweet. Yeah, he's a very special little boy. And I think he's... I've been working with him for a while, for a couple of months.
You've done more with him than I have.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's very calm, first of all, for a 2-year-old. He's very, very calm, very settled, seems very balanced in himself. He's a baby, of course.
Well, I wonder why he's so calm and settled.
He takes my things and throws them all over the place. And
yeah.
But he's very calm, and he has a mind of his own, which I think that it's quite special, actually. I think that a lot of 2-year-old horses or young horses, they can be like wild and crazy and unruly, but they're not so, they don't have a mind of their own like Oki does. he really, I have to say to him, no, I mean this. Okay, let's do it.
Love it.
Little calm way. And then he says, okay, after a while, okay, we'll do it. But he kind of has his own ideas about what he wants to do, which normally would be, for an older horse, the way he does it. So I find that interesting.
Well, if he was in a different situation, imagine Oki if he had been weaned at industry standard 3 to 6 months old.
Exactly.
And then sent to live with a bunch of other colts. What a nightmare he would have become. This horse with a mind of his own, with, performance quarter horse bloodlines. I mean, I showed his bloodlines to a colleague of mine who really knows quarter horses, and she looked at the bloodlines and said, she said, you're going to have to work him all the time. And I was like, I'm hoping so, because I'm hoping he's going to be like a border collie that keeps me really, really busy. I want an active horse, a border collie that you can just go off and play with, who's healthy. But in the wrong situation.
Exactly. And that's the problem, isn't it? That they grow up in confinement. They don't have space. They maybe don't have enough time with other horses. The youngsters often don't have time with older horses. They grow up in these youngster groups, which I believe is crazy.
It's like Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies. You know that book? I think it was a plane or a ship of children got marooned on a desert island, and then they devolved into this violent, totalitarian regime, and they're all like under the age of 10. Like if you take a bunch of boy horses away from their families, from their social structures, from their boundaries, and you accommodate them together and you say, oh, but I've kept the horses with other horses, box ticked, they've had friends. It's like, no. Lord of the Flies. And then I meet these horses at clinics, and they're nothing short of criminals. Like I'm checking them for like shanks underneath their manes. These horses are just they don't know positive social interactions because they were raised in a highly unnatural and inappropriate social structure.
Exactly. And it's absolutely crazy. And it definitely shows with Oki that it's, when you do it right, it's just different. He seems very settled, and he's a joy to be with. And he's very interested in interacting as well, which is just lovely. He sees me coming and he comes up to the fence and he wants to play and he wants to do something, and runs over to the trailer and wait for me to open the gate or the
really
thing. Yeah, he's really
he's really enjoying.
Wants to participate. Yeah, he seems to enjoy it. And then at a certain time, he gets tired because he is a baby horse. He has a young brain. So I see his eyes glazing over, and okay, no, it's time to
finish.
Stop for the day. So yeah.
So you've been trimming him since 4 weeks old. Before we go more into training, just spend if you can, just explain to us a little bit about your background as a trimmer and how you approach hoof care as a professional.
Yeah. Okay. So I trained with AANHCP, so Jamie Jackson, American Association.
Doesn't get any better than that.
No, no, I'm very happy with that. So I trained with them, and I got my certification in 2008. Yeah, I believe. So yeah, and have been working with it professionally since. In Denmark, I had my company trimming for 15 years, and I did it full time for several years. I also worked as an instructor for the organization for a while. So I was teaching students, but then I chose to leave later on. And it makes this approach, there are different approaches to trimming out there. And this approach makes sense to me because it's based on what nature tells us. And that makes sense to me. It's not some person's idea of what it should look like. Everything is based on observations in nature. And that makes sense to me. And so I stick to this model of trimming and everything that comes with it, which is the whole management side to it, which is so important, because the hoofs is really the trimming. Actual trimming is a very small part of it.
Yep. I say it's 25%, 25% of the picture at best.
Right. Exactly right. So the rest is diet, movement, stress. How do we manage the horse's life? Stress is a big one. It really is. And it's much more important than people would think.
Mm.
So all of that. And this is also what I try to teach people. And in my workshops, I would say the trimming is, it's a small part of it, really. It's about all the other stuff, the management. How can we create environments for the horses that are more like what they're designed to live in?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. One very quick question. I don't need to spend the rest of the podcast on this, but I did have a client for hoofcare when I was teaching hoofcare in Denmark, and she really struggled with very, very acidic soil. It was almost like dissolving the hooves. Is that something you've run into in Denmark? Is that like a Denmarkian thing, or Danish thing, I should say? Danish thing.
I don't know
you don't
about
remember?
this. So I know about like the wet, because it's very rainy. Like it's a wet country. So, and of course the constant wet. If you have constant muddy conditions, that's
really hard.
That's not
because
good.
she had lots of wet, but her stable had to import, I think it was peat moss or something, that changed the acidity of the soil, because not only was the soil wet, but it was very acid, and you would see it on every trim. It was just like it was eating at the feet, and like it made the horses like raw and very sore, because it wasn't only wet, it was acidic. I was wondering if it was like a Danish thing, or if it was just
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
No.
Good. Well, you've helped my over curious brain there. That helps. So I know there'll be someone thinking somewhere, perhaps, who's listening to this podcast, and I'm liable to get sort of a disgruntled email about it. Like that, they'll say something like, "Why on earth are you trimming a foal at 4 weeks old? Why?" They'll say, leave them alone. Let them be. If you're giving them movement on rocky soil in like Girona, why trim them? You and I know why. Try and explain, if you can, why to that disgruntled listener.
Okay. So in order for the horse to get so much movement that they would self-trim, they really would need to live differently. I mean, that's almost impossible in a confined situation. And so, although Oki lives in huge fields, and he lives with a herd of horses, and it is quite rocky and gravelly ground, he just does not get the movement. It doesn't get enough movement. I mean, for a wild horse, that's between 20 and 40 kilometers every day moving with the herd in terms of forage. So we have to help them. So what I'm doing when I'm trimming, I'm really wearing the hooves for the horse, the lack of wear that they are, that they're not wearing them enough. So that's what we do when we trim the hooves.
Yes.
And if we leave them to grow too long, that's going to cause a lot of problems.
Yes.
Especially for the young horses. And it's something that I see here in Spain a lot, sadly, that they tend to leave the young horses because of this belief that, well, just leave them, they'll take care of themselves. We don't have to trim them until they're 3 or 4 years old, until we start riding them or training them, really. And it's such a big mistake. It really is, because it's causing a lot of problems.
Yep.
So,
also, a lot of distal limb pathologies and body asymmetries and soft tissue
walking around
malformations.
That's too long is going to cause problems with the rest of the body. Plus, the inner structures of the hooves themselves is not going to develop.
Correct. I mean, Oki's a quarter horse, so he's not Iberian, but he was bred and born in Spain, but all his ancestors are in the States. But it's very common in Spain that a lot of Spanish horses have very upright, almost mule type feet. They can almost go into the direction of clubbed hooved. It's just the way they've been bred. And if these horses were getting better balancing trims from as early as possible, we can redirect the soft tissues to have a better alignment of the lower leg. High-low syndrome. So if you have a horse with low heels on one side, high heels on the other, it's because they were grazing like a giraffe with their legs outstretched as a baby. And if you weren't trimming that from a baby, then they will grow a chronic pathology for the rest of their lives that you will have to manage. And if you're interested in refined training, it becomes a big problem later. So this is all about preventing problems. Yep.
preventing problems and allowing the horse to build strength, really,
Mm-hmm.
become strong. And of course, they move better on short, well-trimmed hoofs.
Yeah.
So also by maintaining them, helping them with the hoofs, the horse is going to move better. It's going to develop.
Be happier.
Yeah.
Also, leg handling is one of those problems that a lot of adult horses have. And I've spent a lot of my life helping people with their leg handling. I would love to work on riding and training, but these horses, you can't trim the damn things. And I have this opinion that I used to say horses have two things they must do: be a horse and die one day. Everything else is a gift. Everything else is a gift. That they only have to do those two things: be a horse and die one day. I now say they have three things they must do: be a horse, die one day, and be trimmed on a regular basis. Everything else, everything else is a gift. They need to be trimmed and cared for on a regular basis. And so working with him from a young age, introducing this procedure to him from a young age, is just a part of life for him now, right?
Yes. And it should be for every horse.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. And it's not just for the horse, it's also for the trimmers, for the professionals, because working with horses that have not learned to lift their legs, it's really dangerous, and it's killing our backs.
Yes.
It's hard. It's hard work as it is, and then having to work with all these horses that have not been taught these basic things, which is really not the farrier or the trimmer's job to teach the horse.
That's why I don't trim for the public anymore. Truly, Louise. That's why I don't do it.
No.
I'm surrounded in my region by farms, and everywhere I look in my region, there's a horse here, a horse there, a horse here, a horse there. I know if I just said to the local busybody, to our village connector, there's one woman who lives in the village. If you tell her something, everyone knows. If I let her know that I was available for hoof care, I'd have people banging my door down.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. People ask me all the time, how do I begin learning about emotional horsemanship, Lockie? Well, I can give a complex and an easy answer to that. The complex answer is that we have many points of entry for all budgets, all learning styles, and many different types of horse people. The only prerequisite is that you care deeply about horses. You could listen here to free conversations with my friends and colleagues, read my posts, watch my YouTube channel, or you could subscribe to my video library and see over 200 videos and 2 new videos posted every single week. But the easy answer, how do you begin learning about emotional horsemanship? The easy answer is the Emotional Horsemanship Foundation online course. Emotional horsemanship is not like natural horsemanship. That's a common misconception, because there are elements in emotional horsemanship which are inspired by all sorts of horse training, including classical dressage, intrinsic, bodywork disciplines, and many different Western riding disciplines. And some elements in emotional horsemanship are purely proprietary to it. I've done a lot of inner work on myself to feel brave enough to actually say that emotional horsemanship is a method, and some of the methods in it are proprietary to it, meaning you won't find them elsewhere. This is the most important first step to learning how emotional horsemanship could teach you how to emotionally balance your horsemanship and your horse. And that first step is to study the Emotional Horsemanship Foundation online course. This humble little course is under 4 hours in length, and you get lifetime access to it. It is the course that changed the life so far of thousands of horses, and I never expected to see more than 15 people there. It's also changed my life too. This year, the entire course is getting an upgrade, and you will get access to that new version as well. Click the link in the description of this podcast to sign up for this course, or go to emotionalhorsemanship.com and navigate to the Emotional Horsemanship Foundation online course. Now, let's return to this conversation with my guest on the podcast. tell her something everyone knows. If I let her know that I was available for hoof care, I'd have people banging my door down.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am saying nothing, not interested, because I don't want to have to start training all these horses that have never been trained to be trimmed.
Exactly.
Mm.
People will not pay you to train them.
No.
Right? Either.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I had that policy in my hoof care business. I started saying that this is not a 2-for-1. If the trimming's taking longer than 30 minutes, I'm now charging a training fee. All the clients disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, which then it makes sense to start teaching people to trim their own horses, because then they find out.
That's right. And from the first trim, they go, "Oh, this is really hard." I'm like, "Yeah,
exactly.
Do you have a new empathy for your hoof care provider?" They're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Do you promise to be good to your hoof care provider?" So good, Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're a little bit sorry.
So, like, training him to be trimmed from a young age, there was a period of time where he was at liberty to be trimmed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he was able to just come and go when he was very, very, very young.
Yeah. Yes. We did that.
How long would it take to kind of get through a trim that way?
It varied from time to time, because he would, for the front, he would be quite fine with it. Actually, from the beginning, he was kind of okay. With the hinds, he would be walking away sometimes. Yeah, he'd walk off. He didn't really like it, especially one of his hind legs. He would.
Well, he had a small injury at around 6-9 months old on one hind leg, and it took him a little while to get over that for a second. And he was a bit
standing on that injured leg was what he didn't like. So lifting the opposite leg was tricky for him.
Is he over that now?
Yeah, completely. Yeah,
love it.
I don't feel any.
Thanks for that. Oh, thanks for that. That's going to make my life a little easier. Great.
Yeah.
Not only me, but my worker, because I have a worker who helps me with the horses, and I've trained her to trim, which might be the smartest thing I've ever done in my life, so that we share the trimming, so the hooves look great because we're able to maintain it, 2 people on 4 horses full time.
Yeah. That's great. So no, I mean, he's a young horse, of course, and sometimes he'll be a little bit of that, pulling a bit and doing all those things. But no, he stands really well for trimming. And now I tie him up as well. So we're working on the tying and standing still, being tied up. And so, he's you're going to be happy with him, I hope.
Of course, I'm already happy with him, but I'm a nerd. So I'm always thinking about how I can prepare these horses better. And he is coming home in June of 2024. We're recording now in middle of April 2024. And since January of 2024, you and I have been collaborating on his training, because I identified that even though he's had a great upbringing, and even though his breeder was able to kind of walk him into a huge truck, that doesn't mean he was ready to get on a truck, be on the truck for 2 days on his own, leave his family, and show up in a new place with my 3, strong boys, and he'll see Sereno and his eyes will pop out of his head because this thing's a brontosaurus, and so it's important for me not to be complacent, and to, as the person who is responsible for this horse and his development, at least I'm paying all the bills. It falls on me to make sure he's prepared. So the original Colt starter had moved on, but I thought, who can I get to support the breeder? Because she's a mum with kids and she's busy and she's already doing enough. She's done so much for him. Who can I ask that's close to that horse that can help me? And I'm like, hello, Louise. She's the bloody trimmer. She knows the horse. He knows you. He's familiar with you. And you happen to be not only a hoof care provider, but in my opinion, a very fine horsewoman and trainer as well. So it's just like, I feel like I got the jackpot here.
Well, thank you.
I really do.
I'm very happy that you asked me, because it's I enjoy this kind of work because you've given me plenty of time, which is
6
the
months.
most important thing. Yeah, I think that's so important. because this type of job is not nice and it's not fun if we don't have time, because then we start rushing the horse. And if we start rushing the horse, then we're going to get into trouble, because if I didn't know that I had time enough to prepare Oki or some other horse, I would get frustrated because I would feel, you have to listen now. You have to walk into this trailer now because we don't have time. And I think this happens a lot. And then we start putting too much pressure on the horse, and then the horse says, "Oh, I'm not having this." And then the conflicts arise. So I think this is really one of the big issues with training. You don't have time. Yes, we're so, focused and obsessed with doing everything fast. I think in society in general, and it, of course, the horse world is, a shadow of that. So we're rushing. We don't have time for anything. Nothing can take time. I have to achieve my goals, and I have to achieve them fast.
Yep.
And so that causes a lot of conflict and pain and suffering for the horses and ourselves.
Yep.
Ultimately. So that's really something that I'm very, very happy to have given this time. And then it becomes a fun job. I enjoy it. Of course it's fun. I love going to Oki. What are we going to do today? So let's see. So it's quiet and it's nice, and he enjoys it and I enjoy it.
We want fast horses like we want our fast food. We want to go drive through. We want to press a button and get a mick horse. Yes. Walk, trot, canter, done.
Right? Exactly. 2 months, and then they have to be able to do everything. Young horse.
Right.
Taken from the field, and then they have to learn everything in 2 months.
So if I gave you 2 months to prepare Oki, would that have been a rush for you?
Yes.
3 months, would that be a rush?
Yes. I think I would not have said yes to the job. I think I would have said no. I can't do that.
So 6 months is your minimum.
Yeah, 5-6 months I would say, and I work with him once a week. Right. But I mean,
he's young. We shouldn't be like overloading him during the week.
Exactly, and I know, that too, and because I think that it would put pressure on me, and I would put pressure on the horse, and nothing good comes out of that.
Because we started talking about it, I think in October or November last year. So if you needed even more time, that time was available to you. But you said, let's start it in January. I probably said it in December, or late November, probably about that time. So there was some wiggle room to begin a little bit sooner, but Christmas and everything. So we started in January. I know that there will be someone somewhere out there, another potentially disgruntled listener, who'll say, well, if you can't do it in a short period of time, you're incompetent.
Yeah, probably.
So what would you say to someone like that?
I would say that you can do it sooner, but it will be
not a quality job.
No, and it will not be nice for the horse. You will be stressing the horse.
Yep.
And if you are not able to see that, then maybe you're the incompetent one.
Love it. Yes. I love that. I love that, Louise. You would get a mechanical response. You would get a mechanical response.
Because it's absolutely possible to do it. Yes.
It won't stick. It won't stick. That training will fall off that horse like the panties off a prostitute. It will just fall off that horse when life throws it up against the wall.
Exactly.
If you want that training to stick and to be more than just, I've prepared them to travel, you're not just preparing my horse to travel. You're preparing him for his whole life. For any time I and my team ask him to do something really difficult.
Yeah.
I'm not laying that foundation because I'm over here doing my thing and he's over there doing his thing. If he was local to me, I'd be doing it myself. But it takes a village. And I don't need a horse to be a monument to my ego. I don't need to train you how to train him the way No, I hire you to do a job and I trust that you know how to do it. And you're introducing him to food reward. You're introducing him to pressure. You're introducing him to body extenders, and you're doing this patiently.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
And
it's working.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's the process been? Because you've been focusing on the trailer loading.
Yeah.
How do you approach trailer preparations for this little dude and other horses?
I start with the leading work again.
There we go. It's all that boring stuff. It's like the brushing of the teeth.
Yes, so boring.
Well,
and unnecessary.
For some people, they find it really, really dull.
Yeah. I don't. I think
I don't.
I love it. I think it's interesting. And with a new horse that you don't know, they all react differently. And I think it's interesting. And I think it's all these little tiny adjustments, tiny things that we can adjust and see the horse reacting to it. So Oki was, in the beginning, if I would ask him to walk forward, he had this thing of just blocking his feet, and he would just stand and look at me, and then he started chewing the rope.
Oh, and there are many adult horses who do exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So I had to first work around that. So one thing I did was call him over. So standing in front of him, calling him over with a voice cue, and he would learn to come to me, get a reward. So that worked. But I also want him to walk beside me, be able to walk beside me with a loose hanging rope. So we're walking together. We can stop. We can walk forward. We can change direction together. So I've taught him that with pressure, a bit of pressure. And so he was kind of like, no, I don't really see why we should do that. so I had to be a little bit persistent with him. So just not escalating pressure, but just being very persistent, saying, well, this is the choice you have at the moment. You can walk forward with me, or we can just stand here. And I can be annoying with this whip a little bit, being a little bit annoying with this whip. And then he would say, okay, at some point, I'll
try it.
Yeah, I'll try it.
Yeah,
see what happens.
That's one of the catch-22s. Nice. It's a catch-22 in horse training, because the horse doesn't want to try something because they perceive they either are confused about the thing you're asking them to try, or they don't see the value yet in the thing you're asking them to try. But how are they supposed to build value in that thing if they don't try it? You see? So that moment where you create try in the horse, sometimes you can lure them with a treat, and sometimes you can say, look, your choice is actually annoying for you to make that choice.
Yes.
And let me show you the consequence to that. That's a rough edge it's a hard line that many of the people I meet really struggle with, because they feel like, well, what entitles me to irritate a horse? And I'm like, well, that's a great question. But at the same time, what's your relationship with irritation? Is irritation a bad thing? What's your relationship with negative emotions? They're going to happen. So why not learn how to do this in a controlled laboratory environment? Let's express ourselves and learn how to navigate all feelings, including negative ones, because it's going to happen. I know a lot of horses who were bubble wrapped from frustration. I'll speak of one horse in particular who came through my business. This horse was bubble wrapped from frustration through all of its colt starting experience, meaning it was never made to feel irritated even a little bit, even a 1% irritation in the training. Everything was done by, I will reward you for doing this. I will never irritate you. You will want to do these things because you will get good stuff out of it. It was like very, very positive only. And this horse, this is a small sample size, but as soon as this horse was sat on, everything went really, really well when they sat on the horse. And then the person decided to do the universal riding thing, which was use reins to turn. And the first time this horse had ever felt reins to turn was when the rider was on them. Because that's what reins are. It's a form of negative reinforcement. Unless you're riding with two targets in each hand, it's a form of negative reinforcement. And so the first time that horse had ever felt any pressure was suddenly with the rider. And guess what the horse's solution was? They reared. They said, face pressure, I rear. And now guess what this horse does 4 years later? Every time they go to turn them, the horse rears, because that was their first learning experience, right? You've potentially prevented that problem in the groundwork, in the leading, by saying to him, look, when you plant your feet and don't go anywhere, what are you going to do? You're going to live there forever on that patch of earth? Are we going to live there forever now? Really? You don't want to come with me, or are you just being oppositional, which is the immature brain is predisposed for being oppositional.
Exactly. And as you say, we can't go through life and never ever have any
Frustration.
pressure, any irritation, of course not. But
Yes.
the problem is if that escalates into,
A
if you
fight.
don't move now, I am going to
Right.
leave. Right? That
Right.
is a different matter. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking
Right.
about persistently saying, come on, we're gonna stand here for 5 minutes if that's what it takes until you take that step forward, and then I can tell you how good you are and how wonderful it all is. And then he finds out, well, this is actually quite nice.
And
Okay,
it's
let's
no
do
big
that.
deal. It's
And
no
it's
big deal.
no big deal, and it was kind of a breakthrough for him that he kind of, oh, okay. And then from there, now I can send him into the trailer and all of this. So it's something that we had to get through.
I remember when I visited him a year ago, he was bombing around the field. He was chasing after his uncle Lenny, and watching him go 0 to 60 as a quarter horse. I mean, he's got some speed on him. He can really take off. And we were going to walk him up to the house with his mum, and I halted him where he was, and I led him behind a bush for about 20 meters, 20 yards. He was going behind a bush where he could no longer see his home paddock and no longer see his mum. And he had a major tantrum. Of course, he was, a year, 9 months old, and he had a major tantrum on the end of the rope. And I thought, oh, this could be very dangerous for me if I wasn't aware of myself, because he could have a tantrum over my person. So the tantrum was first planted the feet and then sort of bunny hopped in place and shook his head. And I said, do you want to come with me? Which was a gentle suggestion with pressure on the halter. And he went, file not found. Don't understand that. And then mum popped out from behind the bush and he went, mum's over there. And I just let him loose and he followed mum. I mean, he's great at liberty. He'll just go anywhere,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that it's, I think the pressure is not, it's
evil.
not, no, it's not evil.
Say that again.
And it can be, pressure is not evil.
Say it again.
And it can be done in so many different ways.
Pressure is not evil.
Pressure. No, it's not. It's evil if it turns into violence.
Evil. Yes. Yes. A lot of people have confused pressure as violence, and they are two different things.
They do use pressure with each other. It's part of the language as well. It's how they speak to each other also, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a way of communication that we can use to communicate with them.
Yep. There are a lot of people out there that just won't want to use the word pressure. They want to rebrand pressure. They'll call it a tactile cue. They'll call it a signal. They'll call it anything except pressure, because for them, perhaps, just guessing, perhaps the word pressure, they are unable to understand this word as separated from violence. They just can't. And perhaps they've had early life experiences where pressure was not good for them, or pressure was presented to them as a violence, and so they're unable to understand it. I think that's a people problem, not a horse problem.
Yeah, I agree.
That we project onto them.
Yeah, I agree.
Beautiful. Well, I think we're going to start winding down our conversation today, because we've all got things to do. But I have a couple of questions I like to finish, like little segments I like to finish these conversations with. Let's see how we do. So the first question, I call it what the muck. I'm going to invite you to muck out something in the equestrian industry that makes you say, what the muck? What is going on? What is that thing that you would like to muck out in this industry?
Oops, that's a hard one. I would say the human egos, like the part in us humans that thinks it's okay to take something from another living being because our needs are more important than the welfare of this animal. If I could remove something from the horse, well, it would be that. I think it would look very differently if that wasn't there. So I think it's very difficult to remove that. Probably impossible, but I think it's really, I think it's a big problem. this constant urge for acknowledgement, and that drives us all, that drives us as humans, and it becomes very abusive and violent towards horses.
I will muck that out with you happily. I will also add that this ego issue appears to me to wear many different masks.
Yes.
There's the obvious mask that is implied when we talk about human ego, someone who's very on the surface, obviously abusive towards their horses or very forceful in the training, removing consent, etc. But there's a lot of people who will depart that place and then jump off the cliff of the ego only to land very quickly on a second cliff called the spiritual ego. And now they've got a whole different ego around, well, I'm a spiritual horse person and it's all esoterics. And suddenly the horse is a style prompt for their own spiritual journey. And that can be exceedingly positive for the people, but I'm not always certain that it's exceedingly positive for the horses. And I think it's often a convenient refuge for some people who are struggling to fully integrate the kinds of training that they have done to horses. So they just leave training behind entirely. And it becomes something else. Horses become a different thing in their life, which, listen, if the horses are well cared for, if the horses are happy, if the horses have all of their needs met, who cares, right? Who cares? But I think it's so important that we continue to return to the subject of horse training, because this is not an open and shut case. There is more to do. There is more work to do on the subject of horse training. We need to make it better, and we need people who have had potentially practiced abusive training in the past. If they've had any kind of spiritual awakening, great, land on the spiritual ego, but again, jump off the cliff of spiritual ego and return to training with these newfound gifts and awareness and really focus. How now can I train my horse with this new sense of myself?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's not still driven from the
human
same
ego,
place, but with a new face.
With a new mask. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something I'd like to muck out today. I do a lot of mucking out, but one thing I'd like to muck out is, because I've spoken about it on our conversation, I don't want to remove people's ability to have their feelings, but the disgruntled listener that I've spoken to today, it's very, very seldom. It's very unusual. It's very unusual to find them. But it really blows my mind sometimes when people listen to something and they have a trigger on a few words and immediately and very quickly come to a presumption or conclusion, rather than leaning in and saying, interesting information, doesn't fully align with where I am at right now, but that doesn't necessitate that I need to go outside of myself and dump on someone else's day. They can come and ask me questions. I love questions. I love questions. I am a nerd, so I love questions, but that's not what I'm getting. I get the disgruntled listener who says, you should be, kind of wagging their motherly finger at me. And I never respond, because what can I respond? There is no response there. And I thought, if they're doing it to me, they're doing it to their horses.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think it really also is this thing about wanting to be heard. I want to be heard. You have to hear, because I have an opinion here. And
I get that, Louise. Find a better way to get my attention. That's my message.
The thing. Ask a question.
Find a better way.
Why would you want to say it like that? Or I wonder, you can ask a question, but that's not what it's about. They're not really interested in learning.
In questions. No. They want to be seen by me. And I get that. I'd love to see you.
Yes.
But there's kind of rules for entry here.
Absolutely.
Because I'm allowed
to set a boundary.
Hello, there we go. That one. I'm allowed to say no
You are
to
allowed to
certain sort of
step down.
energies in my life. And a lot of people will say, what entitles you to say no to my energy in your life? It's like, well, because I'm alive.
Yes.
You're not
Absolutely.
entitled to my life just because I'm quote unquote a public persona to you now. No.
No. No, no, no.
So
Set
I'd
a
like to muck that out.
Yep. I think that's
Boundaryless interpersonal communication and relationship.
Can I mark another thing out as well?
Please, please.
I was just thinking about the early weaning of foals. I think we should mark that out as well.
Yeah.
Following up on our conversation here, weaning them at 4 or 6 months old instead of letting it happen naturally. So let's mark that out as well.
Yeah. If they wean themselves at 6 months,
the mother does it. Yes, absolutely.
Great.
If it happens naturally, but not the artificial.
Yeah.
We both at such a young age.
Yep. I'll add to that. Not only natural weaning needs to find its way to become a norm, and I really don't care what businesses have to restructure and how much they have to restructure to facilitate that, but we need to restructure that. That needs a wholesale rethink, because I am tired of picking up the pieces of that damage later on in these horses' lives. And I'd love to train horses that don't have those issues. I would really enjoy it. And I do enjoy it when I get access to them. Not only natural weaning, but also the weaning process is really important, that even if the human steps in to begin the weaning, even if mum isn't showing any signs of stopping, because we have precedents in nature of, there's a great photo from the BLM of grandmother, mother, child, all weaning from each other. You've got like a 6-year-old mare weaning from mum who's 9 or 10, and then a foal weaning from the 6-year-old mare, and they're like a little snake together. So if there are some mares who are just not showing any signs that they're looking to dry up, and the human has to begin the process at a certain age, that this is done gradually, slowly,
a little bit at a time. Don't just take them away.
Yes.
And
make them cry it out. Mm-hmm. Yes. Lovely. Let's move into little segment number 2, and I call it the tide of change, because the industry, the equestrian industry that you and I are a part of in our own little way, we can agree is undergoing sweeping changes before our very eyes. It's changing rapidly, and it's changing in real time. The industry we have today is not the same one we had yesterday, because social media is forging this exponential growth. More and more people are adding their voices, and more people are shouldering the burden of change. There are 2 ways you might share your thoughts on this, Louise. One is, how do you see the tide of change being? How do you define that? And how do you contribute to that?
So how do I see the change? I see it as, I think, more knowledge coming out. We talked about earlier also that there is a wealth of knowledge. I still think that you have to be able to kind of pick and choose a little bit and sift through, because all knowledge is not necessarily, things that are being shared, not necessarily good knowledge, but it's possible to seek knowledge about so many things now, because there's a lot out there. And how do I contribute to that? I think mostly at the moment through my workshops, I think is where I contribute, really, because I'm teaching people what I believe is really good and genuine knowledge about how to take better care of their horses, how to give them a more natural lifestyle that is closer to what they're designed to be, and about their hooves. And then also just out in the field, one little person at a time, talking to people. Every time I'm out trimming a horse or teaching someone, giving a class, we have a conversation. I always have conversations with people, and we talk about welfare, horse welfare. And there's a lot of people being frustrated with how the world is. And I think it's important. It can feel like a little tiny thing to have a conversation just with one person, but I still think it does help. It does help that we keep talking, that we keep verbalizing these things and support people in their thoughts. I often have conversations with people where they say, well, maybe it's just me or something like that. And I will say, no, it's not just you. You hang on to that feeling because what you're noticing is that something is wrong. So don't apologize for thinking that there is something wrong out there. Hang on. And I think that having these conversations with people are making a change. I think it is. I think it's slowly.
Yeah. We need people like you in every sort of geographical region.
Yeah.
Possible. I mean, you're a local service provider and you travel as well, but you deliver to a certain nucleus. Yeah. And if you weren't there in that community having those conversations, who's there having those conversations? Who's doing it? Who's doing it? And I've been to places in the world. I was in Aiken in South Carolina, which is one of the largest equestrian communities in America. I mean, you drive for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers, and every property lining the roads is a horse property. Every single it's just like a total horse community. It's like a weird commune of horse people. And there I am talking about gentle training. And I mean, I don't know everyone in Aiken, of course. And of course, there are good people there doing good work too. But I had some people tell me, oh, we wish we had someone like you here. I'm like, why was this my job? There are so many providers here. Why was this my job? And we need people like you who are willing, qualified, and able to open their mouth and speak.
Yes. So thank you for asking me on this podcast.
To open your mouth.
Yes, exactly. Maybe in a bit of a broader, to a broader audience, because it is very much, and I think maybe for many trainers and trimmers, we have a small audience of people. It sometimes maybe it can be hard to get out there because we're so focused on our daily job and our work, and just sitting down and doing that Instagram post, sometimes it takes a lot of
me too.
Getting it done, getting out there, because I think there are actually a lot of good people doing good work.
Yes.
Maybe nobody recognizes it, or they're not being seen, maybe. So
they're not being seen. And listen, not everyone needs to be seen and not everyone wants to be seen.
No,
what we need really is an abundance of service providers in local communities, because if you stick around where you are, Louise, you will accumulate a community around you where they will look to you for advice, for services, and you will be setting the tone and the standard in your local area. That's what we need, is more people willing to set the tone and the standard locally, because then this web will start to bleed open and we'll be able to say, oh, these communities eventually won't be disparate and disconnected. They'll start to blend. And one day you'll be on the road trimming somewhere and a client will say, oh, well, there's another trimmer in the next region who kind of overlaps in your region. And instead of feeling competitive about that, you'll say, thank
wonderful
God, I've got someone I can call when I'm sick. Oh, could you take that client for me? There's someone I can collaborate with, because we're going to need a village to do this.
Yes. And so it becomes normal to do good things.
Yes.
So we don't have to feel like rebels.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because we're training horses differently, or trimming differently. Yeah.
One day we can change your branding from rebel horse care to normal horse care.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a bit boring.
Yeah, we'll find a better word for it. But something, it's like, I would love that your way of working is no longer seen as a rebellion, because you share with me on WhatsApp videos of you working with Oki, and I just watch it with like a sigh of relief. It's so refreshing. It's exquisite. It's just classic, timeless horsemanship. It's so balanced and in the middle. And can I take 1,000 of you and spread them all over the world? I mean, honestly,
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, of course. And like, I'll contribute to the tide of change in the sense that I think the tide of change will take a village, and we need to run, not walk, away from professional insecurities, because a lot of professionals have a mindset and a feeling in their body that there's not enough room at the table for everyone. So they're trying to elbow others out and compete for what they think are scraps at the table. Where really what that is, that's a business structure problem that can actually be corrected. And I've had my business mentor, Christiane, on the podcast, and she can certainly help people with that. If you corrected your business structure, you would probably realize that there's more than enough space at the table for everybody. And that if we are wanting to get a better world for horses, we have got to link arms and collaborate with other professionals. We've got to do it, even if that professional is different to you, even if they share clients with you, even if there's a little bit of healthy competition for clients with that professional. Good, because it's going to make us better. It's going to sharpen our teeth. It's going to keep us fresh. It's going to keep us on our toes. It's going to keep us innovating and stop us being complacent. This is healthy. This is good. We've got to collaborate with each other. We've got to stop being so bloody insecure, and stop seeing our colleagues as our competition. Start seeing them as people to lean on. Good competition, because not all competition is healthy. And not all collaboration is healthy either. You don't have to collaborate with everyone, because some people are clear out of their mind. You shouldn't be collaborating with people who are out of their mind.
No, that's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. But yes, I agree, because we tend to, people have, we're all, I say all, the people of us who are trying to do better for the horses. We're all wanting the same thing. We want a better world for horses, and we want better welfare for horses and their people. But we tend to, I don't agree with you on this exact little thing, so I don't like it.
Right.
Come on, we're working for the same thing, and we're all different.
Yes. Yes.
So let's not focus so much on those little tiny differences and focus on the bigger picture instead.
I think it goes back to what we started the conversation with, which is having multiple plugins and being able to plug in information and go, good information. Don't have to agree with it. Don't have to understand it, but good information, and to not be threatened by that. I'm always very suspicious of people who are looking for a universal consensus, because it's fundamentally unscientific to look for a universal consensus. Robust science is challenged in its consensus over and over and over again. And even some of the best peer-reviewed science out there will have a small percentage of other people in the scientific community who disagree with that science or who challenge that science. And instead of saying, so-and-so disagrees with X, so therefore X is invalid, I say, nope, I think that validates the science, because good information will always have more than one truth. Good information will always have someone who's challenging that information. That's what makes it good. And if we're looking for universal consensus, I think we've missed the point. And we're trying to form this intellectually asinine container where someone can feel very intellectually superior and never be challenged in their thoughts, their feelings, and their belief systems. And that creates an echo chamber, and that's a hop, skip, and a jump away from thunk, human ego.
Yep. Exactly. Well said.
I think I just mucked that out again. Okay.
You did.
But okay, so my last question today is probably my favorite one. And it's my most important question, because we're in an age of learning journeys. Everyone's on a learning journey. I know Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue, when asked what is one trend she wants to eliminate from fashion, she said the word journey. And I thought, fair enough, Anna Wintour, and not to be Anna Wintour about it, but like, I kind of want to see us move away from that word, not because it's a bad word and not because journeys are not good. They're very, very good. But a journey's only a journey if you come home.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's homelessness. You can't endlessly learn and travel. You can't endlessly be out there in a fog somewhere. You've got at some point to make a decision to bring the information back and integrate it in a practical way into your body. I never enjoyed Alice in Wonderland. I don't want to fall down the rabbit hole. I don't want to sit at the Mad Hatter's tea party. Even as a kid, I tried to watch Alice in Wonderland. I'm like, this just makes me uneasy. I'm like, Alice, stop it, you idiot. Don't drink that. Don't sit with that idiot. Stop listening to these idiots. Go back up, because I think there's plenty that is interesting and creative and wonderful about real world, boots on the ground, down to earth realities. And so I want to see more and more horse people come to a place of knowing who they are in their body, that they can go on learning journeys, but bring it back home and integrate it and actually use it going forwards. So what is home for Louise Bach Holler? What is home for you?
So home for me is, I think, where we started the conversation, listening to my heart, because throughout my life, I will be 50 this year.
Congratulations. It beats the alternative. It beats the alternative. 50 or die. That's the alternative.
Yeah, that's it. And I think throughout my 49-year-old life, or year life, I think listening to my heart it's always been guiding me. And when I manage to actually stay in that, listen to that, what the inner voice, the things that I believe to be true in me, doesn't matter what other voices are out there telling me something different. If it doesn't feel right in my heart, it's not right. So I think home for me is exactly there, listening to that heart and being open to new things, new information, changes, but sticking to what my heart is telling me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel very, 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 very similar to you on that. I always try to keep a part of my brain, a part of my heart, a part of my thoughts private just for me. I imagine it like a little altar, like a little Buddhist altar with a incense stick in my heart that is just for me, that I go to find peace and solace. And it doesn't matter what I've learned, I'm able to bring it back to that place and integrate it. It doesn't matter who I've met, what I've done, whether it was good, bad, or otherwise. If I've made mistakes, which I make them every day, I always come back to that place, and that place is just mine. And I don't let anyone else in.
Exactly.
Not even my partner. It's just mine. That's just for me. And it don't belong to nobody else. And that's how I'm able to create a sense of stability in myself as I go forward.
Yes. And it's so important. And it's something that we are missing. I think that a lot of people, they have no idea. They don't know what that voice is saying. So maybe that's something that we need to, like, as a society, think about a little bit. Why has it come to this? Why are so many people not really have no idea who they are and what their inner voice is saying? Just being thrown about by all these different voices and things happening in their life and not really knowing, who am I? Yeah.
And then they go get a horse, and the horse says,
oh my goodness,
who are you? The horse says, who are you? What's important to you? And the person goes, I don't know. And the horse goes, I don't know either. So get it right. Circle back to me, but figure it out. Yeah. Horses are a great way, because they will absolutely hold you accountable on this point.
They will.
Louise, for anyone who wants to work with you, what do you offer? This is the part where you plug your services.
Okay.
Go.
What do I offer? So I offer several different things. I trim hooves for horses in my area. I live between Vic and Girona in Catalonia. So in this area of work, I also give
Do you speak Spanish?
I do speak it, not fluently.
Okay, great. So that means anyone who's got Spanish as their preferred language in your area, they could potentially hire you for trimming?
Yes.
Super.
And it would be good for me to practice, so I would be very happy.
Good.
More Spanish-speaking people.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's one thing I do. I also give workshops, teach workshops.
Internationally?
Internationally, yeah, anywhere.
Someone listening, contact Louise and bring her to your location anywhere in the world for a hoofcare workshop. Please do it.
Yes, that would be wonderful. So, yeah, I do that. And I do training. I help people with horse training and riding, and yeah.
Do you work online?
I have just started beginning a little bit, and I really want to do that. Yes, I really want to do more of that. Yeah, so that is absolutely an option. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So if anyone loved listening to Louise and the way she processes around horses, I can fully validate and endorse, frankly, what Louise is doing, because she does it for my horses. So like this is someone I actually hire myself to train and trim my precious cargo, fat baby, Oki. And that's a term of endearment because he's not that fat anymore. Yeah.
No.
And so you're just starting the online modality, which is so exciting. So anyone who's willing to go with Louise as she learns the ropes of how to do that, please get in touch with her. Louise, if you ever need some ideas or pointers or advice about how to integrate in an online modality, let me know. I'll do my best. If not, I'll handball you off to some friends who can help hook you up that way. I want to see you survive, not only survive, but thrive in this industry and really create a foothold for yourself, because I love what you're doing. I really do.
Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of balance and a lot of sense. It's timeless, the way you're working. It's timeless.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for asking me.
Of course. And
it was lovely to have a conversation with you and actually see your face.
Yes, it's not just texting on WhatsApp. So yeah, I'll talk to you soon because you're going to go see Oki again, right?
I am. Yeah.
Great. You're going to measure him for a fly rug, and then I'm going to spend all my money on fly rugs and stuff. Great. All right. Have a great day, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Emotional Horsemanship Podcast. I am your host, Lockie Phillips, and that was my guest, Louise Bach Holler. If you want to learn more about Louise, you can click the show notes to find her website and her social media, and maybe even hire her yourself for your own little project. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like and share this episode if you did like it, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.